Welcome back, guys. In today's video, we're going to be discussing 5 tips for concealed carry. Now, if you are new to our profile, we like to discuss topics like fitness, firearms, tactics, mindset, and kind of just that general preparedness lifestyle. So if those are things you are interested in, consider subscribing below. And in addition to that, for our hard chargers, our go-getters who really want to up their concealed carry game, stick around to the very end where we're going to have 3 additional tips. Let's get to it, guys. So we've been getting a lot of questions on our Instagram profile, specifically about concealed carry, and I think I can kind of attribute that to just the overall rise in gun ownership in the United States. But before we start, I want to say, man, there's nothing that makes me more proud than to know that there's more and more Americans who are becoming self-reliant, wanting to be protectors in their communities. So we need more guys like you out there. Keep it up, guys. That's awesome. But with that, there's some things you should know before you actually go take your firearm out into public. Now, I know you're itching, you just got your new gun, you want to, conceal carry it and go out in public to do whatever. You're asking your wife if there's anything that she wants you to go do. You want to go to the gas station even though you don't need to fill up your gas tank. I get it. Trust me, I get it. We've all been there at some point. But eventually that's going to die down and it's actually going to become somewhat of a burden. So before you actually take out your firearm, let's cover some things, some major things that are common mistakes that new gun owners do when they're concealed carrying. All right, so number 5, and this one kind of predates you buying your gun. So hopefully you either haven't bought your firearm yet or you've bought the right one, but buy a firearm that you're actually going to carry. So the rule of thumb is you want to carry the largest firearm you can that you're actually going to carry every single day. The whole point of EDC and concealed carry is that you're going to carry every single day. Now, most new gun owners out there think they're going to carry a full-size gun, 1911, whatever, and they trick themselves into thinking they're actually going to carry that every day. Trust me, they last about a week or 2 weeks, and eventually they start making excuses as to why they're not going to carry it. Oh, their clothing doesn't fit it, or they're only going 5 miles, they don't need it. But that's a slippery slope you're going to end up going down. The entire point of concealed carry is that you have it every single day, because the one day you don't have it is going to be the one day you need it. So for me, I carry a Glock 19. That is the largest I'm willing to carry for a firearm, but it's also good enough. It's definitely a capable firearm to actually carry. I can conceal this just fine with all of my garment. Now, I'm not walking around with the board shorts. So if you're a guy that's walking around with shorts or, board shorts, whatever it is that you're actually using, Glock 19 might not work for you. And if that's the case, then you're gonna have to downsize to maybe a Smith & Wesson Shield, or I even have a bodyguard here. I wouldn't recommend pocket carry, but if that's all that you're going to do, that's the only thing that you know you're going to carry every single day, then carry the firearm that you're going to carry every single day, even if it means a pocket pistol. So guys, buy and carry a gun that you know you're going to carry every single day. All right, number 4, and this is actually the most common mistake not only new concealed carry holders make, but also experienced ones, and that's printing. Now, what printing means is when you're concealed carry, whether it's inside the waistband, outside the waistband, whatever, your clothes, your garment are too tight around the weapon, and it ends up showing the outline of a firearm through your shirt. Now, every single cop, every concealed carry holder, every criminal knows what the outline of a firearm looks like. And as soon as you expose the fact that you have a firearm, you've become less dangerous and less effective. You want to be the gray man in the room. You want nobody to know that you actually have a firearm. The reason for that is if there was somebody else, a criminal with a firearm who came in, you don't want them to know you have a firearm. You want to be able to catch them off guard and catch them by surprise. Because guess what? If a criminal comes in with a firearm and knows you have a firearm, you've become target number 1, and he'd be able to ambush you as opposed to the other way around. So the whole point of concealed carry is to actually conceal the firearm. Number 3, don't go cheap on your holster. Now, I know a lot of you spend a lot of money on your firearm and you're kind of looking for ways to cut corners and save some pennies. I get it, but the last place you want to do that is with your holster. You don't want to go cheap on it. The holster is just as important as the firearm in concealed carry, because what a holster does is it retains the weapon. The main focus is your retention. And now a lot of holsters out there, like cloth holsters or leather holsters, they're kind of universal and they don't really have any retention. As soon as you select something that has no retention, you run the risk of your firearm slipping out. So if you're bending over during your day-to-day activity or whatever you're doing, if your firearm starts slipping out, you start exposing the trigger guard. And when you expose the trigger guard, that's when you become susceptible to a negligent discharge. Especially if you carry appendix, you don't want a negligent discharge if you want your entire anatomy intact like I do. So I recommend going with a Kydex holster. Kydex kind of like a plastic material, but the makers of these make them specific to your firearm. So you can go online. This is a Tier 1 Access. I went online, selected a Glock 19 without a flashlight, and had them make it specifically to the firearm that I'm using. That way, my firearm slides right in and it's not going anywhere. I can bend it upside down, do whatever. My mag's not going anywhere, my firearm's not going anywhere unless I intentionally pull it out of the holster. There's good retention with this holster, so that's the type I recommend. Do your research online and pick the one that you think is good for your needs, but just don't go cheap on it, guys. Get a good, reputable holster. Number 2, but before we move on, guys, if you like this type of content and you want to see us keep pushing out material like this, don't forget to go down, hit the subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell. That way you are actually notified when we put out a video. All right, moving along now that the plug's done. Belts. Belts are number 2, and belts are very important. This is the best belt I've ever owned. Take a look at this bad boy. I'm just kidding. This is horrible. Look how loose this is. This has no rigidity to it. When you're looking for a belt for EDC or for concealed carry, you want one that's stiff and rigid enough to hold the weight of your firearm. This is what I used for quite a while when I first started, and I think it's a mistake that most newer concealed carry holders make. They just don't understand quite how important the belt is. If you have a loose belt, your gun starts to sag, it starts to becoming very uncomfortable, and you start printing again. You should pick up a belt that's specifically designed to carry a firearm. This is an Ares Aegis. Look how stiff this is. It's much stiffer and it can hold much more weight. I'll actually put a link in the description for this so you can see how much it is. I think it's like $100. But the larger the firearm that you are using or that you are carrying, the more important a belt becomes, especially for guys who are carrying like a full size. This is just not going to cut it. Select a belt that's specifically designed for that. Do some research and pick the right one. It's a lot more important than you probably realize. All right, and lastly, carry the firearm in a position on your body that you have quick access to it. So I have a bunch of different configurations of holsters here, and I'll kind of just break them down from my least favorite to most favorite. So right here we have an ankle carry, and I carried ankle for a while. I'm embarrassed to say it. It's not good at all. I mean, if you just put yourself in the position, imagine you're being held up or you need to draw your firearm immediately in a moment's notice. Are you going to be able to drop down, lift up your pant leg, draw your firearm, and get on target? It's probably going to take you 5 seconds at least. That's not what you want. Now, I understand, though, there are some people who have to tuck their shirts in for work or whatever, and this is basically the only option they have. I get it. If it's the only option you have, then go with it. Go with ankle, but it's certainly not ideal. Moving along, I also have a pocket pistol. I've also carried this before for a little while when I was going through my board short phase, which I'm out of, thank God. This is also not ideal because, you know, you'd have to dig into your pocket, pull it out. The holster right here has some nubs on it that's meant to stay inside your pocket, but sometimes it doesn't always happen, and sometimes you end up pulling the holster out of your pocket along with the firearm. The trigger guard is still covered, and you just would have to then remove it and then get on target. Also not great, and secondly, the reason it's not great is because you have to carry such a small handgun to actually conceal inside your pocket. So it's an option, and like I said before, if this is the only option you're going to use there, you know you're going to carry every single day, then go with it, but in my opinion, it's not ideal. Next, we have a Kydex holster that is outside the waistband. This is typically something you're going to wear like 3 o'clock, and this is pretty good, you know, especially if you're wearing jackets and things like that where you can conceal it. Good, there's nothing wrong with a 3 o'clock. That's what most people did for a long time. I concealed for a long time that way. It's a great option outside the waistband if you're looking for it. There's a bunch of these type of holsters online. And then we have 2 inside the waistband holsters, both of which are appendix. Well, I mean, this could be really put anywhere, but I prefer inside the waistband and I prefer appendix carry. Now this is a Warthog holsters. They're like a small holster company out of Arizona. They sent me this holster, but it's actually pretty good. It's also Kydex, but you notice the difference here. You have a firearm holster and then you have a mag holster, and they can, you know, you can put them like this orientation or however you want and separate them however far you want, and they're good, but I don't quite like them as much as the combined units like this. This is a tier 1 Axis holster, also Kydex. Also, you know, it has great retention, but the mag holster or holder or whatever you want to call it and the firearm holster are 1 unit. They're not 1 unit by Kydex, but they're fixed by this 550 cord, so it has some flex to it. But I want my firearm and my mag holster or holder in kind of the same orientation right there along my appendix carry. So I prefer appendix, but that doesn't mean it's the right way. It's just right for me. And there's a lot of different factors as well. Your body type. You know, there's some body types that aren't great for appendix. There's some body types that aren't great for 4 o'clock. So figure out what is best for you. But the most important thing is to make sure you have quick access to it, because you want it in a moment's notice, because when you need it, that's going to be when you're going to need to need it. All right, so we just burned through the 5 most common mistakes I see concealed carry holders make, but now I want to slow down and kind of get a little bit more serious. Guys, as soon as you take your firearm out into public and you make that decision, you've just adopted a whole list of responsibilities that the average person doesn't have and that you didn't have before. And to go through some of them, first of all, your local laws. You need to be educated on your local laws. Ignorance of the law is not justification for breaking it. What may be acceptable for me may not, wherever you live, be acceptable in your state. And secondly, you own every single round in that firearm. Every single round in your firearm, you're responsible for, and there's an attorney attached to each one of those rounds. Especially when you pull that trigger, if you aren't shooting the right person or it's not justified, or worse yet, it goes beyond that person and you didn't know your backstop and you just hit an innocent person, you're gonna have to live with the consequences of that, not only legally, civilly, criminally, but also morally. So understand that this is not a game, it's not something to be taken lightly, and there's a whole lot more to concealed carry than just picking the coolest firearm and picking the latest whiz-bang gadget. And then the last thing is be a master of de-escalation. You don't have the luxury of being Mr. Tough Guy, macho, looking for fights or even engaging in fights. Every single fight that you're involved in when you're a concealed carry holder, it's a gunfight. Why? Because you brought the gun to the fight. So always look to de-escalate the situation, always look to step back and not get engaged with somebody, because ultimately, if you go down that road, it could just lead to bad things. Concealed carry is only for the purpose of preserving life and property, not for anything else, guys. So do the right thing, be smart about it, be educated, be responsible, and be a good gun owner. All right, so now we're gonna go into the bonus tips for the overachievers out there who are really trying to up their game. First of all, guys, thank you for tuning in this long. I appreciate it, it really helps us out. So we're just gonna go right into it. Tip number 1 is always carry with one in the chamber. Now, I know there's a lot of new gun owners out there who are a little bit scared of firearms and they think that they're just gonna go off based off the misconceptions that they've got from what they've heard. Modern guns don't just go off. As long as they're secured in a good holster and the trigger guard is covered, they're not gonna go off, you're not gonna shoot yourself with it. So it's important that you carry with one in the chamber. The reason being, when you need your gun, you need it in a split second. You don't need to waste time grabbing it and then racking the slide, drawing attention to yourself. It just could lead to problems. Also, like I said, the sound of a slide racking, that's the universal sound of I have a gun. So if you are in a room and somebody's affixing a gun towards somebody else, they're robbing a bank or whatever, and you're trying to catch them off guard, as soon as you rack that slide, you've drawn their attention from that person to you, and you're just drawing negative attention to yourself, and you're losing the element of surprise, which is what you don't want. So always carry with one in the chamber. The next tip is gonna be carry a handheld flashlight. Always carry a handheld flashlight. And I don't care if you have a light on your gun. Now this happens a lot. Even cops think, oh, I've got a light on my gun, I'm good to go. I'm gonna search with my gun pointing in every direction, but not every situation you're in requires you to pull your gun out, number 1. So you don't want to be searching because your Walmart light went out and you're searching around with your gun. That's just inappropriate, number 1. Number 2, if you are in a critical incident, you want your firearm pointed in a direction, got a spam caller, in a direction that is where you think the threat's gonna be. You don't want to pointing it all around as you're searching. It's better to just search with your flashlight down like this while you have your gun pointed in the direction that you think there's a possible threat. And then the last one is practice with your guns. And by practice, I don't just mean live practice. Before you even do that, you have the luxury of making it dry. So take all the ammo out, make sure it's clear, go in a safe space, make sure there's no ammo around you, point it in a safe direction, and just practice with it. Practice your trigger press, practice your draw, mag changes, things like that, just weapon manipulation. You want to be very proficient with it, and it's not okay to just practice for the first week, think you're good, and then 5 years down the line think you're gonna be proficient with it. That's not the case. You always need to stay up to date. You always need to be bettering your skills, be a better protector, a better concealed carry holder, and trust me, you're gonna be better off for it. So those are your bonus tips, guys. Thank you for tuning in this long. Trust me, it does mean a lot to us and it helps us out a lot. So if you like this type of content and you wanna see more of it, subscribe below, hit the notification bell, and also let me know in the comments below what type of firearm you're concealing, what type of holster it is. Do you carry appendix? Do you carry 3 o'clock? I'm curious to know what you are doing and whether you think I'm right or wrong on my assessment of concealed carry. Thank you guys, I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Dude, these flies are pissing me off, man. Where's the fly swatter?